Should I sit back like this? Forward like this?
They both look good.
Okay. An audio engineer is typically the person who, well, in like more modern sessions, they'll be running the session in the computer, and they'll be hooking up all of this gear you see around us, and they'll be dialing in all the sounds. They know how all of this gear works and how to turn sound into digital zeros and ones and then into sound again. So
I feel like there is a certain type of person who's a good engineer, but then within that there are all sorts of like ways that you can specialize in it. Everyone has their own thing.
Beyond the technical knowledge is, I think, the most important part is having a creative ear, having a musical and creative ear to make musical choices with all of the technology.
So essentially the design is each room in the studio doesn't share a floor, wall, or ceiling. They're all unique and coupled. And this particular room is, these mechanical isolators, and then 3.5 inches of this concrete subfloor. This is like 2x4s, and then like 3 sheets of like 5/8 plywood, and then air gap, and then it kind of doubles on the other side. So if you really want to have a studio, you need to own the space that you're operating out of. I think like leasing or renting it isn't really tenable long term. And then possibly like renting out part of that space for another use for like a tenant that can actually pay market value.
If you want to work at a studio like this, learning Pro Tools, unfortunately, is there's no kind of way around that. You can use any DAW you want, but Pro Tools is, if you're really good with Pro Tools, you can find yourself in a lot of good situations.
The producer is kind of like, I think of it as the director of a song, if you will, kind of the person that sees the whole picture and is kind of guiding everybody through recording the song. A great trait of a good producer is being malleable in your communication style. Some people are very technical and literal. Some people are very kind of esoteric and creative and, like, I want it to sound purple. That's awesome. I want it to sound purple too, but what does that mean? You have to tell me what it means first.
All the kind of ceiling and wall treatments were done to get like a certain reverb time as well as the measurements of the room. Everything's electronically coupled to the patch bay, or what we call the control room over there. So there's about 5 miles of cable that we ran in the basement.
This may be a dumb question, but was it hyperbole when you said that there was 5 miles of cable underneath?
No, yeah, we all ran it by hand, yeah. Yeah. A lot of legwork. It was 3 years from like starting construction to finishing, so it could have been quicker, but you do a lot of things wrong the first time and then redo them.
Either way, whether you go to a school for it or whether you just learn stuff online, the thing you really need to do, if you want to be an engineer specifically for music, is you need to have those like connections with artists. And so kind of just doing like, nowadays it's so cheap to get stuff. I would say just like get an interface with whatever computer you have and just like record your friends.
Some of the biggest songs in the world have elements in them that were recorded in literal closets. So the entrance point to becoming a music producer is really accessible. It's so amazing to see young musicians, younger than I, half my age, like 15-year-olds, making incredible music at home and collaborating with other artists across the world sometimes over the internet. You don't have to save up thousands of dollars to have like a few days in a studio like this where you have to have everything perfectly mapped out and rehearsed, because if you don't, then you're wasting time and it's money. You can just like dink away in your bedroom for 12 hours on a snare sound if you want to. Taking the financial pressure and the financial barriers out of music has been one of the best things to ever happen to music in history.
And this art wall, which is poorly lit right now, is made by Chris Mott. He's an artist out of Bloomington, Indiana. And it's all 2x2 individual wood sculptures that are built to kind of, sound to go in and refract and bounce. And it actually works. It's nice having like a functional art piece in the studio. And here, through sliding doors, have called like the dead room. So when you come in here, you can even hear like the sound change. There's no real reverb. Even it has its own separate floor, walls, and ceiling. Like it's essentially its own house, as every room is.
It is something where starting out, you don't make a lot. It's a job that's like, it's super fun all the time. So the money's okay, and the job itself is really fun.
You ready to go?
Ready.
Not emotionally, but it'll be good.
It's an industry where you need to have that passion, but if you're willing to put in the work and keep at it for years, you can eventually get to a place where it's pretty decent pay. For audio engineering, it seems to be usually between 20 and 30 an hour. If you get into production, you can make a lot more. So like if you're assisting with songwriting, if you're doing editing, vocal tuning, things that really change the sound, you can charge a lot more for that.
One of my favorite things to do is vocal production and vocal coaching in the studio. So I love working with singers. The voice is it is a physical instrument in your body. So it is also very psychological. And I think a big part of being a producer is psychological, working with people and really like pulling a performance out of them, pulling their heart through whatever instrument they're using.
It's hard to kind of tell like what's going to happen, especially with like technology changing so fast. So it's set up to work fairly well as a hybrid. So you can use all these cool kind of analog effects. You're tracking through a really nice vintage analog console that sounds great, but we have it electronically. So, your recording can go straight to Pro Tools, or you can record to tape and it'll record to the computer at the same time. So it's really kind of the best of both worlds. I know some people will send us tracks they've recorded and they just sound kind of like DIY, and sometimes the first thing we'll do is just send it through the tape machine. And then it just sounds, it's a bit of a vibe. It's like the perfect career path if you have ADD. Feeling like everyone that's an engineer has ADD because you're like juggling a million things and you don't have to keep your focus on one thing more than like 5 seconds. So that's some career advice if you have crippling ADD. I had always kind of been dabbling in kind of recording, and then I had opened a studio maybe 10, 15 years ago, kind of leasing a space, just kind of doing it on like a referral basis, no real advertising, just kind of friends and friends of friends bands. And I had some good results with that. I was looking for a commercial property just as an investment. I was like, if I could do that and then also create a studio to placate my ADD and like foster the arts in here, I could possibly, have those two things exist simultaneously. So that was essentially what brought me here. Hi. Oh, hey. This is Control Room B. It also has goth lighting. This one comes with a Sierra in the corner too. It's cool.
Like reach out to studios and reach out to people you look up to and just ask them about questions. Ask them if there's anything you can do to help.
Sometimes, if you want to learn in a studio setting, sometimes you got to make coffee for a while and then just start asking questions. And most people love talking about their work. So they're very open to sharing their process. So
Yeah, I'll send an email to Quincy Jones. I'll see what you think.
yeah, I'm sure. Good luck with that. I'm sure that'll go well.
This is a live room of Studio B. Yeah, same treatments. This is an old loading bay sliding door, so you can like slide it open or close to change the acoustics, and then you can open like a door to nowhere for different acoustic properties. I tried to have like a fairly well curated selection of like weird, quirky, inspiring instruments that are like cover a wide range sonically. And then similar dead room in here where you can do kind of 70s style drums or
Why do you say 70s style drums, out of curiosity?
if you just listen to old like 70s records like Al Green or like the band Wire, like the drums sound really close and there's not a lot of natural reverb, which is kind of a style back then.
There's always opportunities for people who are really good at audio engineering and really good at working with other people. And if you're just really good at audio engineering, you're just good at audio, but like it's hard for you to work with other people, that's going to cut down your opportunities a lot. So try and be open to different ways of doing things. Try to learn as much as you can.
Do you have any like funny stories over your career?
Yeah, probably. I don't want to scare people or something. I've worked with a lot of people that were really bad to work with, so I have funny stories of people arguing and things. And
Oh, yeah.
yeah, I don't know.
Obviously, having a strong sense of music and creativity is very helpful, but also like one of the most famous producers in the world, Rick Rubin, isn't a musician. He just has a really, really great ear, and he knows good when he hears it. And he's really good at pulling it out of people and guiding people, getting people to work well together. There was a really great interview I heard about him working with Johnny Cash on his last album before he died. And, Johnny Cash was a performer his entire life. He was an entertainer. He's like larger than life. And when he was in the studio, he would also kind of put on this larger than life entertainer performance mode. And Rick Rubin was trying to pull out a softer, more vulnerable performance out of him. And he would just say, "Get off stage, Cash. Get off the stage." And that's all he had to say to him. To me, that's my favorite part of producing, is he figured out what mindset Johnny was in, and he just like found the back door in his brain to get him into the space he needed him to be for that performance.
It can seem really daunting. It can seem like, oh, I'll never be able to have a job like this, but it isn't out of reach, and anyone can do it, but it just takes like work. It just takes time, and you need to be focused. Lots of people like want to do recording, but the actual amount of work it takes, like if you have the passion, you'll definitely get there. It might take 5 years, 10 years, but if that's what you want to do, don't let anyone tell you no, because you can definitely do it.
Yeah, I love being an artist. I always will. But I was always in the back of my mind watching the producers and the engineers thinking, man, that's such a cool job. I wish I could do that. And it was always, I wish I could do that. It was, and I didn't realize that until the last few years. It was never, I want to do that. And it was, I wish I could do that, because it was almost always old white men who were doing those jobs. And I never saw myself. I never saw women doing it. And I definitely never saw like genderqueer people doing it. It's not a uncommon thing for women and non-binary people to just not own that title. Because we don't see ourselves in those roles. So it's kind of like this insidious imposter syndrome thing that we almost need someone else to call us the thing before, well, like probably 10 times before we're like, I think I'm a producer now. And I hope that they see me and other people like me doing these things, and they can say, I want to do that one day, not I wish I could do that one day.
Say hi, Samson.
Leg. Just leg. It is a man leg.
The end of the cable
There
goes
were
to
some-
like the other side of the car.